Good. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for a moment of silent reflection for our servicemen and women throughout the world and for those who have passed away in our community, especially Mary Lou Razeski, Tom Golden, Caroline Gustin, Tony Sierra, Chris Bean, Joan Garrity, Virginia Gilroy, Ann Kearns, Dr. Peter Shorten, Tom Duffy, Mary Tunis, and James Sermonaro. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. King? Mr. Schuster?
Present.
Dr. Rothchild?
Here.
Mr. McAndrew?
Present.
Mr. Smurl?
Here. Dispense with the reading of minutes.
Third order, 3A, Controller's Report for the month ending November 30th, 2023. 3B, correspondence from the Business Administration dated December 18th, 2023, regarding a budget transfer for the IT department. 3C, City of Scranton financial audit completed by Clifton, Larson & Allen, LLP, received from the Business Administration on December 19th, 2023. 3D, minutes of the Scranton Firefighters Pension Commission meeting held November 15th, 2023. 3E, minutes of the Scranton Police Pension Commission meeting held November 15th, 2023. 3F, minutes of the Composite Pension Board meeting held November 15th, 2023. 3G, agenda for the non-uniform Municipal Pension Board meeting held December 20th, 2023. 3H, minutes of the non-uniform Municipal Pension Board meeting held November 15th, 2023. 3I, Lackawanna County Planning Commission Subdivision and Land Development Evaluation Reports received December 26, 2023. 3J, correspondence from the Business Administration received December 27, 2023 regarding 3 budget transfers. 3K, overtime report for all departments provided by City Controller received December 31st, 2023 for the period January through December 2023.
Are there any comments on any of the third order items?
Yes, I have a comment on third order. Prior to December, I requested that Council receive a copy of the Labor Council billing, specifically related to the Scranton Fire Department CBA. Mr. Voldenberg, I know we didn't receive anything on that yet, but if we could reach out again to get that billing.
We have not received. I'll follow up.
Thank you very much. And then also, when it comes to budget transfers, if we could just ask the administration if they could provide a brief description of what those transfers are, what the reasoning for them are.
I will.
All right, thank you. That's all on third order.
Thank you, Mr. Schuster. Anyone else? If not, received and filed. Do any council members have any announcements at this time?
I had 2 announcements. First, I wanted to wish everyone a Happy New Year. And second, I wanted to bring up a dinner that's going to be happening Sunday, January 14th, beginning at 2 p.m., and that's for the Scranton MLK Commission. That's their annual dinner they host for Martin Luther King Jr. Day, and that's going to be at the University of Scranton, the Naples Center, and so you could purchase tickets to that. A single ticket is $25, and there's further information about the event on the Scranton Area Community Foundation's page, but I'm sure the University of Scranton has something up about it as well. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rothchild. Anyone else?
Yes, I'd like to wish everyone here a happy and healthy new year, and welcome back.
We good?
Yeah, that's all I have.
All I have is I'd like to welcome our new attorney, Tom Gilbride. Welcome, and That's all I have. Okay.
Fourth order, citizen participation.
First is Michael Mancini.
Good evening, City Council, and Happy New Year. Mike Mancini, resident of the City of Scranton. Yesterday, I took a walk around Naog Park. It was my first chance to actually get out since my diagnosis with Hodgkin's lymphoma. Thanks to the grace of God that I was looking at 12 months of biweekly treatments, and I was able to get through it in about 4.5. I planned on going to a gym, but going there New Year's Day is probably out of the question, so I took a walk around Naog Park. You know, to my surprise, walking around the park, inside that pool, they could have put any type of Christmas decoration in there. I don't know if anybody noticed. It's a Jack in the Box. Bing, surprise. Well, look inside the pool, and you could actually know where the mayor is originally from. Oregon. In Oregon, they have a lot of mines. With those mines, there's a lot of tailings. Those tailings actually sit in both of our pools. It's a disgrace. Shameful. And this pool's not going to be started until next year, not this year. It's been it'll be 6, maybe 7 years before those kids were able to go swimming in that pool again. And yet, the mayor just nonchalantly says, okay, all right? Well, you could tell that with arrogance, the outcome is not well. When she ran for mayor, the majority of her funds were gathered by out-of-state funds, okay? She doesn't think too highly of us. She doesn't think too highly of this council either. You know, you're supposed to have your agenda from the City of Scranton at noon. Many times you don't get it till about 4 o'clock. You have the Recovery Act, and you have to make informed decisions on a lot of this stuff. But yet you don't get in until 4 o'clock. She doesn't think too highly of this body either. It's evident. When we had that flood, where was she? Nowhere to be found. Well, when you truly don't know the people of the City of Scranton, you cannot make a good decision, okay? The City of Scranton is holding documents that I've tried to request on 3 separate occasions: sales of the parking authority and the sewer authority. I have yet to receive those documents, October the 15th. At one point, the administration gave me a letter stating that they don't even have these documents. Well, if they didn't have the documents, they would be in violation of the Home Rule Charter. I have proof of that. It's unfortunate. You know, it's unfounded that somebody, unfathomable that somebody could actually walk into this city, be a resident for as long as I have, or in a lot of cases, property owners, just to be shunned to the side. You know, you would think that with a degree from a major college, major university, Harvard, you know, you would determine and have the ability and understanding when to pick up a phone, okay? She doesn't even do that well. She sits here half a day and admires that diploma on the wall as opposed to working for the people of the City of Scranton. It's evident. We see that in our roads. We see that in our blight. We see that in our community every day. But yet, she doesn't see it herself. Well, Paige Cognetti, your arrogance will become your downfall. Well, the rest of us look at national politics. City of Scranton has a very important decision, and that's mayor. Next May is when she's up for re-election. Take a strong look at what you do locally, because it's easier to fix a pothole than it is to fix anything else. And Page Cognetti, while you're at it and you're on your way to Waverly, take a look at those roads, because that's what ours are supposed to look like. Good evening, Council.
Thank you. Next, Norma Jeffries.
Good evening, Council. Norma Jeffries, a Scranton resident. And I think the first thing I want to talk about is these microphones up here. You know, we come down here to hear what council has to say in your caucuses and things. And, you know, I sit there and I cannot hear what's going on. So when your back is to the audience and there's 4 mics, can't each of you have a mic and speak into it? Mr. Smurl, you were perfect tonight, and Mr. McAndrew, but I can't hear anybody else. I don't know what the new attorney, Gilbride, even said. So what's the sense of coming? Should we stay at home and listen on TV? Because I'm sure that the residents of Scranton can hear what's going on more than we can here in the audience. So I don't know how much those mics cost, but it seems that each one of you should have one in front of you. One of the things I wanted to talk about, and I get all off my agenda when I hear things with the first caller that was, the first speaker that was up here, and I'm not sure what his name was, but I, as you all know, spend a lot of time at Naog Park. I'm on the board up there at Naog Park. I'm very proud of Naog Park. Nothing is perfect. Everything takes time to get it done. So it's easy to stand back and point fingers and say, how come it's not done? How come time? But it takes time, and I'm very proud of the fact that the pool will get started next year. I'm very proud that the kids will have some place to swim in next year when they start to dig for the pool. So, you know, I'm thrilled because at the first discussions that went on with the pool, it was nowhere. It wasn't even on the agenda at all. And now we at least have a year that it's going to get started. So I thank the mayor, I thank the committees, I thank anyone who has anything to do with getting the pool going and at least to have a date on when it's going to get started. Also, I wanted to talk about my projects, okay? And you know, anyone that has been sitting here, Mr. Gilbride, this is your first time in hearing me talk about things, but my big thing that I like to talk about are my street signs. It's been 5 years. 5 years since I stood here at this podium and gave you a spreadsheet of the missing street signs that I ran into each day. I was new back to the city, and I was continuously getting lost. So I made a spreadsheet of those street signs that I ran into each day. I presented it to council, and I've been presenting something and talking about the street signs. The last information that I was given on the street signs was that there was a, what is it called? Where they go in a grant, that they had to be a grant. Well, that was the first time I had heard about a grant, because before, when I went down to DBW, they showed me their database, which was 9,000 entries on that database for street signs and stop signs. And it was a matter of, first, there wasn't enough personnel. There was only 1.5 person that was working on the street signs. So that was understandable. Then it was something else. So it's 5 years that we've been trying to get decent street signs. And I notice it so much when I'm out of town and I come back in the town. I come up the turnpike, and depending whether I get off at Wilkes-Barre, if I've had enough of the turnpike, I might get off at Wilkes-Barre, I might get off at Scranton. And if I get off at Wilkes-Barre and I'm driving and I say, there's those street signs, the first thing that hits me again are the street signs after I've been out of town. So that's always my hot button, it's the street signs. I'm also concerned about the wall there at by the Radisson Hotel. Someone is going to be hurt. That steel pole that's sitting in that crumbling concrete is going to fall. It's going to hurt someone, and the city is going to be liable. I guess it's the city's wall, but I've spoken about that before as well. I've also wanted to ask about the code enforcement. vehicles, nice blue and white little vehicles running around the city. I don't know how many of those we have, but I was wondering today when I saw them pull up to, there was a mattress on the street, that's what it was, and they pulled up there, and I thought to myself as I was at the stop sign, is there a report that's available to the public as to how many citations they have given out? And if they have given the citations out, how many citations do they get out before they're really turned over for, I don't like to use the word prosecution, but, before something is done, that they have to really do something. So on closing, real quick, I want to thank everyone who volunteered for the light show up at the park. We had a lot of rain, and the rain really threw a lot of our lights out. So for those that did come up and help us to volunteer at the park and get us through those days, I thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jeffries. Les Spindler?
Good evening, Council. Les Spindler, city resident, homeowner, taxpayer. I want to wish everybody a happy, healthy New Year. Welcome, Attorney Gilbride. I see he's got a paper nameplate. Is that a cost-cutting thing?
Coming.
About 10 days ago, before Christmas, my wife and I were riding around the city looking at lights. And on Orchard and Prospect, we saw a wonderful display. And Mr. Smurl, is that yours?
Yes, it is.
I thought I saw you there. It was awesome. We parked the car, got out, walked all around. It was a wonderful display. And my wife asked the gentleman that was there how long it took, and he said it only took 3 weeks to put up. That's a short amount of time for all that stuff. And I said, if anybody didn't see it next year, I'd advise you to go up. It's really nice.
Thank you.
Did a good job. On the way in, I picked up a refuse and recycling calendar, but it only was up to June. Are they not going to collect the last half of the year?
They're going to be, but there's other things that may happen in the future, in the near future, so probably
But
send
in
another one
past
out.
years, we had a schedule for the whole year.
Yes, I understand.
And speaking of cost cutting, I got a great way to cut costs. Eliminate the parking authorities, the parking enforcement jobs. I've talked about this for a long time. They selectively enforce the laws. Like I said, I was parked the wrong way about 2 years ago on my street, and I got a ticket. And I complained that kids from the University of Scranton and New Jersey and New York license plates, they park right up to the corners, making it impossible to see if there's oncoming traffic, which is a definite safety hazard. And I told one of the enforcement people who I knew, and nothing was done. I saw a car parked in the same spot for a week, and it wasn't moved. There was no ticket on it. But I'm a taxpayer. I park facing the wrong way once, and I get a ticket. But the kids at the U don't get tickets. And where I was parked on my street wasn't a safety hazard. Blocking the view of oncoming traffic is a safety hazard. So I said, that's next year in the budget, eliminate the parking enforcement jobs. We could save ourselves a lot of money because they don't do the job anyway. Next thing, December 14th in the newspaper, this jumped out at me. Picture and a little article. Finding a west side parking spot just became a lot easier. And the mayor's there with some other people. That's a lie. I know the lot very well. It didn't get easier, it got more difficult. They took parking spots away in that lot. All they had to do was pave the lot, and it would have been a lot nicer. They put islands in there with trees and other stuff. So they took at least 25% of the parking spots away. So it definitely didn't make parking easier on West Side. And I go to Vincenzo's restaurant, which is right across the street from there. As a matter of fact, I went there Friday for pizza. I said, Vinny, what do you think of the new parking lot? He said, they took away a lot of parking spots. Between Vinny's, Keystone Restaurant across the street, and the Hawaiian Place right next to the parking lot, sometimes you can't get in there on a Friday night. there was a lot more spots, and the mayor's blowing her horn, oh, a lot more parking. Like I said, it's a lie. They took parking spots away, and they're hurting the businesses there, not helping them. I guess that's all I have tonight. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Spindler. Next, Lee Morgan.
Well, I guess the first thing I have here today is that I appreciate the comments of the first speaker here about the pool project. As I've said many times before, that project just wasn't put together right, and the water slide coming down, I really think that the people responsible for that should pay to have that slide put back up. And there seems to be a debate on what occurred there and how the slide came down. I think the residents should find their way into a courtroom and bring the rec authority there and the mayor there and put them under oath and sue them and see if their immunity shields them from liability to replace that slide, because there was absolutely nothing wrong with it, and the project was designed to leave that slide in place as they built it. I have the study at home, and I just think it's a sham what's occurred in this city with grant money over an extended period of time. But today, I came here because I had to file an action in the Court of Common Pleas against the city. So I'm in federal court, and I'm in the Court of Common Pleas, and I'm going to file another federal petition within a couple weeks when I do a little more research. But I find it very troubling because I have your quality of life ordinance here, and all 5 of the council members signed it. And I just want to say that that's the most corrupt document I've ever seen in my life. And your solicitor's right here. I mean, you have 3 members of the board sit there and they can't ask anybody one question, and they have the solicitor running it as if it's some kind of real trial, and then when you get the transcripts, it's just a meeting. And then when you go through the whole thing and you win, the city doesn't give you your money back. Okay? And the hearing I had, Mr. Alecki sat there and didn't even have the inspector there. So I filed an appeal. I went to District Justice Corbett, and the city was the moving party, and she gave the city a continuance. I think 2 of them. Why do you need a continuance? And then the other question is, why aren't these tickets time-stamped, and how did they even know they were ever presented to the property? Real problem. This is your ordinance. Now, the other thing is, finally when it came to the court administrator for the district court moved the hearing to Judge Pizzotta in Dixon City. Now, the city's attorney came there and said he didn't even know why he was there. He didn't read my complaint to the court. And then when the court heard the hearing, and I brought transcripts in from the hearing where I beat them at the Building Appeals Board, the Building Appeals Board sided with me the first time. Okay, the second time I didn't waste my time because they didn't give me my money back, so I went right to the district justice because they issued me a ticket. Well, the district justice held the hearing, the city showed up, no inspector, nobody, and said, I don't even know what I'm doing here. That's how corrupt the system is, okay? So then the district justice hears it. So the city presented no case at all, none, 0, okay? And I presented facts and pictures and transcripts from the previous hearing and discussions with the district justice, and he took it. Well, then he sides with the city with no evidence. So then I had to ask the court to determine, did you not have jurisdiction to issue a ruling in that? I asked him in writing. Well, he wouldn't answer that in writing. So now here we are here. But the question is, why would a resident be subjected to that kind of abuse, all right, and win in your Building Appeals Board, and then the following year, like they do every year, come back out again? So you're going to find somebody, they're going to pay you to have an appeal. You pay for the appeal, you win, you don't get your money back, okay? And then you find out in my appeal that they had no case, none. The inspector didn't show up, nobody did. And this is what you 5 individuals signed on for. It's the uttermost corrupt thing I've ever seen. So what I'm saying to you 5 councilmen, one isn't here, that you are corrupt. And that law needs to change, and you need to fire the director of licensing and inspections, and you need to get your shit together, because I'm going to sue you in federal court next. And I'm not going to lose this. See, people think that just because you're a truck driver or just because you're something, when the city hires 2 outside legal firms to deal with just a truck driver, that tells you something. And when the city's own attorney comes and he says he doesn't know why he's there, he couldn't come with evidence because there is none. It's all politics. And I love politics because I know how corrupt you guys are. All right? The city has gone the wrong way for a long time.
Thank you, Mr. Morgan. Mr. Ellman?
They're just corrupt. Thank you.
Good evening, Council. Once again, the Times prints this racist, anti-Jewish, anti-Israeli, anti-American letters from several different, to me, demented people that I can't see why a credible paper and an editor would keep such objectable dribble in the paper. They're not opinions. It's just hate-filled, you know. As far as I'm concerned, I saw on television several times right after the Jewish invasion slowed up. They weren't dancing in the street no more in Gaza. They weren't singing the revolutionary song anymore. All the hate that the Hamas brought upon them. To me, they deserve everything that's happening to them. You know, sometimes people wonder where all this hate they have, that Hamas has, comes from. In the first week of May, I'm not sure of the exact date, May 6th or 5th, the paper, the Scranton Times, had an article, the Muslim American Society's Philadelphia chapter's Facebook in Arabic had a 2-minute video that showed young children singing and dancing. It was put into English 2 or 3 days later. You know what they were singing and dancing about? The words. They were willing to sacrifice themselves. You're talking about little children. And they were singing about chopping off heads and so forth. This was in our paper, if you want to read it, May 6th, I think it was. They were on their way to the Dome of the Rock in Jerusalem. These people were taught hate to start with. I don't know how it can be overcome in wars or anything else. And to change the subject, I saw in today's paper on the apps for the zoning board, there was 11 apps. 6 were asking for 22 new apartments. 6 of the 11 are all in residential zoning. The zoning board's responsible for so much demise. They allowed all this single houses along North Main to be apartments. Now we're full of undesirables. There's so many cars they park on the sidewalk and nothing can be done. Les was talking about a car, been there for weeks. I got a junk car next to my property on Troop Street. It's been there 5 years. Nobody would do nothing about it. It's not a bad-looking car. I don't know what's wrong with it. The man's allowed to live in a condemned house. This is our zoning board and our licensing bureau. You know, as the first gentleman said, I certainly agree with him. If Mrs. Cognetti really wanted to do something for the city of Scranton, she should resign and let a capable person take the place. But I think there'll be a fight to stay here. And I don't know who in the world would want to try to clean up this mess that she's made of Scranton. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Alderman. If you'd like to leave the address for where the abandoned car is, we can send it to the traffic division.
President Smurl,
Yes.
I was pulling up an old email. I'd say 2 years ago, I stopped at Mr. Elman's house, and I did get the addresses of these cars. Mr. Voldenberg did send it over, so I'm going to send this again to see if we get updates on these cars.
We'll send it out again, Mr. Elman. We'll send it to the traffic division. Okay, thank you.
This is what destroys our neighborhoods, but
We're going to try to take care of that
it
for you.
just doesn't stop.
Okay, thank you. Marie Schumacher? Thanks, sir.
Good evening. I'm not sure that's such a good idea. I rode up that street to see that car. I think it might be a couple of years ago, and there's some very pretty little flowers around the dirt that's been put around washed around the wheels. So at least it's something pretty in the neighborhood. The main thing, of course, is this. Why are we going to pay double postage? Do you know something we don't know? Are we going to have a change in our calendar? Maybe more than 6 or 12 months? Why are we spending the postage twice? Which of you have that group, the DPW? I don't know.
Mr. Schuster has that department now.
I'll check into that.
Okay, did you know?
I did notice it as well, yes. I was going to ask that of the department, of the administration.
Okay, thank you.
In advance of it being sent out, that it was just going to be for 6 months.
Okay, another thing is, what happened to the Beautiful Blocks program? The controller's report today has $30,000 sitting there in a budget, and not a penny has been spent. Why do we have a program and not execute it? Anybody know why nothing was spent?
Well, I'm not sure. If it's grants, they have to be applied for. Were they the $5,000 house front grants? Is that where they were? Was that the one?
No.
No.
Was this the 2023 line item?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
It is. And then, I know this one, I just very curious, because when you go through the controller's report, there is, under the Bureau of Buildings now, there is a $5,040.32 for Mancy's, I think, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, collision repair. I don't know what at a building would, does anybody know what the collision was with the building? Okay, on the good news, I do believe that the drainage on Snook Street has been corrected. It's hard to tell. There's the water company is up there and perhaps DPW, I don't know who else, but certainly a lot of trucks and a lot of mud. But I do think that one's been corrected, which will be very nice because we won't have all that inches of ice on Seymour Avenue and going on to 307. And then I guess that'll do it for today. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all that's on the sign-in sheet.
Good evening, Council. Dave Dodson, resident, taxpayer. In the paper, and unfortunately I misplaced the article. I actually had it cut out like I do from time to time. The building up in Oliphant, it's 11 years old, cost $20 million. Built by the SLIBCO, the Chamber of Commerce, and 10 years, for 10 years it was tax exempt, Keystone Opportunity Zone, and now it's being torn down. Now, you might think, well, what does that have to do with Scranton? Well, guess what? The county waived taxes on it, and we pay county taxes, so it does have something to do. And you wonder why we have people sleeping up along the railroad tracks. How many basic homes could $20 million have built? The rents are way up. Next to my house, $1,200 to $1,500 a month. They start out at $1,500 and they say they'll cut you a deal. It is not a pretty house. And I really wouldn't go out in the front porch with any kind of crowd. I can see the condition of the joists and stuff. And yeah, I keep getting letters in the mail. They'd like to buy my house. So I called my mortgage carrier and asked them if they could pull off some shady deal, like buy the house out from under me. They said, no, no way, not while you have a mortgage with us. So I was assured of that. But it's just shameful how much money gets wasted on these development deals. The mall went bankrupt. We lost $5 million or something like that. And they paid taxes for 1 year. It just gets really silly. So I would hope sometime in the future that something would change in that respect. They know what to do with our money, but you know, it's just now it turned out that people are working out of home. But my father, when we first moved to Scranton, the company was gutted. It was supposed to be a promotion. And a small 6-room house with 6 people, and we had the privilege of one of the rooms being occupied as an office. Gee, thanks, guys. Eventually, my father built it up that he had a half a dozen people working for them and everything, but when we moved in, it was, maybe we should move back home. A few weeks ago, somebody was up here talking about woke. Well, I'm woke, and I'm damn proud of it. Because here's the reason. We have a senator from Florida. He wants to put an end to Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. Oh, and by the way, he got caught with his medical organization and pled the fifth 76 times, and his medical organization was fined $1.5 billion for fraud. And I'd like to point out that Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, veterans benefits, highways, bridges, if a policeman sees somebody getting beaten silly on a corner and he's riding by, he stops. And he doesn't ask, "Sir, Miss Punching Bag, did you pay your city taxes this year?" So, you know, police and fire are somewhat socialist. So, I mean, it's like it's a social organization and we take care of each other. And it would be quite impossible to run society otherwise. Along with education, by the way. Three people up there made their living from education. Thank you. Have a good night.
Good evening, Tom Coyne, Manuka. Welcome back. And the first thing I'd like to, first question is, I understand that the file for council 64 of 2023, creating overtime reporting requirements for all City of Scranton departments and employees. Of course, since it was an 8th order, did not, held and tabled in 8th order, does not carry over to this year. Do we plan on reintroducing that legislation, as it was not just for public works, which it wound up suddenly being tagged to, but for all department employees, whether it be a city employee, whether it be license and inspection, not just specifically fire and police, which already have the mechanism, and DPW, which seems to have it in place, but there are a number of other city employees that should be covered underneath this. Are we going to put that back on the agenda, or are we going to not really want to track overtime? Because I know from the last report that we got, our overtime budget was only in excess of $750,000 last year. I think $750,000 is pocket change to throw out unaccounted. Second, there were multiple requests last year for feedback on charging the yearly rental fee to nonprofits. As a last standing, the city did not understand the question of, are we charging a rental fee to nonprofits, including the University of Scranton? I'm not sure what verbiage hung them up. Was it nonprofits? Was it fee? Or was it rental? Has there been a follow-up answer yet from the City of Scranton on whether they are going to apply the rental fee to rental properties by nonprofits? Third, I move on to council's last year information requests that were, as we talked about, were not responsive, and we have them in the right to knows. Mr. Argenta put in a simple request for information on all city-owned cars, where they're stored, and if any are used for employees to be taken home. His response, the City of Scranton did not have the information on its vehicles. One of the members proved it wrong by pulling the insurance contract for the city that had that information directly in it of the vehicles and provided it. At that point, a list was provided to City Council that supposedly did not exist according to the Right to Know office, and it was marked confidential. It's amazing how property that is owned by the public, that is a public asset, is suddenly confidential to the people who pay for, and the city is liable to respond to. And in that, I have actually put in a right to know on legal claims. And unfortunately, My right to know was denied because of a new ploy. It seems that it was denied specifically because I put it in to be limited and not overbroad. But because of a new tactic, they have the data, but it's not in the format I requested, and they don't have to supply it if it's not in the format that if I request a different format they don't have to supply the information. So the public has to know what format the City of Scranton has all its documents in to get information under right to knows, or it's denied, which is a bad faith operation. And in that, I call the City of Scranton as now, the City of Scranton's Right to Know office is the Right to Know office, N-O. I can see nothing, I can find nothing. Moving on from that, I wanted to touch back with calling the 311 number. I just want to remind everyone that Scranton has a new 311 number. 311 has now become Scranton No 11. No single person wins when calling that. There have been multiple comments here made that when Scranton is called 311, they get no response back. But it seems that is the proper response from this administration to the public. Thank you.
Anyone else? Anyone else to address council? No?
Fifth order, 5A motions.
Mr. Schuster, do you have any motions or comments?
Yes, I have a few. The first one, and some of these I discussed in caucus earlier. The first one is we got an email from the city administration, from the business department, about the ethics code and the campaign contribution adjustment. There's 3 sections of the campaign contribution adjustment that are in the ethics code. And what the code states is that this can be changed every 4 years. And what the administration has done is it has upped Section A by $700, it has upped Section B by $1,300, and Section C by $1,300. When the ethics board was put in place, it was put in place by council. The code was put in place to, stop donors from influencing politicians. I just would like to know from the administration why we're upping this, Mr. Voldenberg, if we could send it over to get some clarification on why we're upping the campaign contribution adjustment for the ethics code.
I'll ask that question, sir.
Thank you. I want to thank some of the members of the audience tonight to keep some of these things on my mind. With the recycling schedule, there may be a good reason why it's 6 months. I do not know that reason, but can we also reach out to the department that handles that? I think it's the recycling coordinator, because there were some questions I had last year also about this. I think the recycling coordinator is who sends it out. Could we ask them why it's only a 6-month period rather than the full year?
I'll ask that.
Thank you. The overtime legislation. We knew this legislation would die in December. I was one of the people that pushed for this legislation so we could track overtime in all departments. I think that was the start of a conversation. I would have liked to have seen it done as it was, but at least it was a starting point. I thought council and the administration would have a conversation about this to work something out that would be beneficial to the citizens. I would like to keep the conversation alive. As we were approaching December, I did ask that we ask for in writing how each of the items that were included in that legislation had been taken care of. So if we're documenting overtime in all departments, please provide us in writing how we're doing it in each department. So, Mr. Voldenberg, I ask if you could reach out to the business administrator and see if they could put in writing how they are documenting overtime for each department in the city.
I'll ask that they do that.
Thank you very much. Another one that someone from the public reminded me about is the rental fee. It was asked, are we charging the University of Scranton the rental fee as per the rental ordinance? The answer that was provided back was about dormitories, but it wasn't dormitories I was referring to when asking the question. So if we could ask, are we charging the actual rental properties there, the rental registration fee?
They do charge for the off-campus housing,
Okay. All right.
is what I received, but I'll go back.
All right, thank you. I did get a few phone calls. The barriers on the bottom of East Mountain Road had been moved to do some maintenance on the road there. I don't think all the barriers were moved back. I reached out to Mr. Voldenberg about that. He's on that. And I got some calls about some sinkholes in West Mountain. I'll send them over, Mr. Voldenberg. And then the last piece was, I discussed in caucus, was the tax forgiveness that we were talking about for victims of the flooding. So we discussed in caucus that Solicitor Gilbride was going to take a look at the legislation that had previously been prepared and keep that conversation alive so we could move towards some help for the people in the affected areas of the city. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Schuster. Dr. Rothchild, do you have any motions or comments?
I have a few comments. First, just today I received an update on one of the properties that I was asking about, 621 Alder Street, and I think they're still waiting on a court date for that, unfortunately, so hopefully they'll get that sooner than later, but that seems to be what happens with some of the properties when it gets held up with the magistrate. The magistrate tries to get in touch with the property owner and then cannot, and not that it falls off the radar, but things just keep getting pushed further along. So I'm hoping that there will be some resolve there soon. I also don't recall receiving any updates about along Front Street in South Side where there was a lot of debris, mattress, garbage, things like that. Not sure that that's been cleaned up to my knowledge, and I think that was something else too that was headed to the magistrate. So I'm going to ask Mr. Voldenberg to check in on that again for me.
I will, Dr. Rothchild.
Thank you. And for the 6-month garbage schedule, like I said earlier, I don't think any of us were aware that I was just going to be for 6 months, but perhaps there are some changes that will be made to garbage that they needed to do that. Still would have liked the heads up that it was only going to be for 6 months. I'm sure the postage was less because it's smaller than the calendars from last year, but in addition to our question about the schedule, I'd like to ask what the cost was for this year, so we have that.
I'll find that out, Dr.
Great, thank you. And the Beautiful Blocks program that did take place over 2023. I'm not sure why perhaps the money from the city wasn't allocated towards that, but NeighborWorks did run that program again. So I'd also be interested in finding out the answer to that. And
Dr. Rothchild, NeighborWorks will be in a few weeks, but I'll ask them beforehand.
okay, great. And I know we've had questions in the past about the code enforcement vehicles, and I don't recall the number of them off the top of my head.
10.
Is it 10? Okay, that was in my mind, but I wasn't positive, so I don't want to answer that right away. But yeah, so 10 of those vehicles, and then there is a process for citations prior to them being taken to a magistrate. So first someone gets a door tag and a violation letter, then they'll get the quality of life ticket. I believe if they don't pay that and then get a second ticket, then from there they'll try to bring it to the magistrate. And as I mentioned earlier, that can then get held up for different reasons there. And lastly, I wanted to bring up something that we'd been talking about for a while here, the issue with handicap parking, and we revisited that over caucus. I know Councilman McAndrew had concerns about that as well, and so we've made sure that our solicitor is aware and going to take a look into the parking ordinance that we do have to see if there are any changes that we could make. I have concerns about the enforcement, so making sure that we have better enforcement and better compliance from people who are parking illegally in handicap spots. But then there's also the question of for people who purchase the handicap permits in front of their houses and then have other people who may have the handicap placard parking there but don't live there, making it more difficult for them to utilize that spot that they've now paid the annual fee for. So I'm also very interested in finding out the answer to what we might be able to do as a council for to change the ordinance to make it better for people who need to use that type of parking. And that's all that I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rothschild. Mr. McAndrew, do you have any motions or comments?
I have a couple things. So, excuse me. Do I appreciate all public comment? I certainly do. We get a lot of great ideas from the participants of public comment. Am I a proponent of freedom of speech? Absolutely. I listen to Mr. Morgan almost weekly. Sometimes he brings us valid concerns. Sometimes I sympathize with his plight. But now it's my turn in fifth order to exercise my freedom of speech. I'll tell you something, I come from West Side. I think I'm pretty thick-skinned, like a rhino. But I might be referred to as a lot of things. Corrupt isn't one of them. It's not one I appreciate. I take that as someone questioning my integrity and questioning the integrity of my colleagues to the left and right of me. So I take offense to that. I'm letting it known, and I don't appreciate it. All right, next. So last year during the budgetary work session process in November, an issue came up that I had a huge concern about, and that was the city footing the bill per se for the redevelopment authority director. Out of nowhere, without discussion, we were informed that this gentleman's going to be paid by the city. He's a non-employee, and he's going to receive benefits from the city, both to be reimbursed. Couldn't wrap my head around it, still can't. So I posed a question to the HR director. I said, okay, you're telling me it's okay. Never been done before, but you know, I'm still not in agreement of it. But I asked one question. I said, we're self-insured. And you know, at the expense of the taxpayers, you're going to pay for this gentleman's benefits, probably family benefits, probably 30 grand. And the question I asked in addition to that was, hey, does the health care administrator, which is the broker for us, that looks out for our best interest, saving cost, by the name of Willis Towers is the organization, and then the benefits provider, Highmark, are they aware of this, and are they okay with it? And they said, yeah. I said, well, you know what? Could I have that in writing? And I was told, sure. So fast forward almost 3 months, I have yet to receive an answer. So Mr. Voldenberg, could you please circle around, see what happened, and you know, tell him I'm awaiting a response. And I'm sure my colleagues would like to know that answer too, because I've been in a situation before on school board where a non-employee got benefits. Didn't end well. It didn't end well. I don't want to get jacked up again with that, or potentially have us, you know, approve something that we probably shouldn't have.
I will, sir. I'll reach out for that document.
Thank you. Next, so I received a concern today. Mr. Voldenberg, I already gave you the pictures. I already gave you a little bullet of the text that I got, but it's a property that's at the top of Luzerne on a little piece that's called Dalton. I never even heard of it, but I know the area. Because it's where it crosses and becomes division. So around there, it looks like there's some illegal dumping. So could you please have code enforcement take a look at that?
I will.
And also, we talked about this in caucus, and you know, we're not always informed as we like to be, and we know that there's turnover in the city quite a bit. But we talked about in caucus that there's a posting for an assistant city planner. We have one budgeted for it that I'm aware of. Is this a new one, or is this someone that's leaving? Is this the one that's leaving? If you could help us out with that, see, try to get an explanation with that, because we're budgeted for one, and that's fine. If someone moved on to better things, that's great. But, and also with regard to street signs, Mrs. Jeffries, there's been dialogue, and I share your concerns and sympathize with your plight, and I'm proud of you that you keep fighting for this. But I remember some discussion, it wasn't a bad idea. Like I say, a lot of good ideas come from you folks. That, okay, cost is an issue. They're looking for funding. They're looking for grants. But I'm not sure. I don't want to misname the person, and I heard of this also after hearing it the first time, that, there's vinyl sleeves that are pretty durable that we could use to reduce costs and get these signs done quicker. I know we talked about it. I don't know if we sent correspondence offering this idea to administration as a way of speeding up this process and do it, more in a cost-efficient way. So could you, maybe we didn't get a response. It was before the holidays. So if you can send that over as maybe an option or an idea to explore, so we get this project done once and for all.
I'll take care of it, sir.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. McAndrew. I just have a few items. The 6-month recycle card, I'm also interested in that, why it was only 6 months. I don't know if it had something to do with, I believe that we were going to implement Rubicon this year. So I don't know if it had something to do with that and if we were changing routes or something, but I'd also be interested in a response about that 6-month card being mailed out. Second, Grow America, forming NDC in conjunction with ABM Parking, confirmed that they are currently reviewing all the questions that we had sent to them last year regarding the barnacle thing and the new parking violation devices that they want to implement if it's approved by council and to enforce. I believe they are coming to council in January. Mr. Voldenberg, are they coming to a caucus?
They will be in January. We don't have a date.
Hopefully they'll have all those questions ready and
they said they will
beforehand. Thank you. Stephen Avenue, there was a complaint on Stephen Avenue, 215 Stephen Avenue. Someone had purchased the property, started renovating it without permits. City went in, they fined the owners, and they did pay the fines. They are hiring licensed contractors now to complete the work. And the Brook Street, with the bright light up on Brook Street, they were asked to put a shield or something else on it, and I had received more complaints with pictures showing the lights coming into other neighbors' houses. If we could find out from licensing and inspection, or is this zoning? I don't know who would be responsible to take care of this, if it's a zoning thing or if it's a zoning ordinance about lighting.
It's in zoning's
violation.
hands. Zoning is handling it right now.
All right, and are they going to, their next step, certified letter and so forth to settle this?
That's correct, sir.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Voldenberg. And that's all I have.
5B, no business at this time. 6th order, 6A, no business at this time. 7th order, 7A, no business at this time. 8th order, 8A, no business at this time.
If there's no further business, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
This meeting's adjourned.